Hello, 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 everybody. How are you? Um, if somebody can let me know whether or not you can hear me before I start babbling too much. I feel like I'm like awkwardly positioned here, but I'm trying to make sure that I have a space where um, we can see and be seen. Hello, hello. I feel like I look a little bit wretched. I see people that are here. I'm gonna fix my hair and then I won't be able to see anything, but I'm going to see me. I see Miss Jamie's here and we'll see if she, whether or not she can hear me or not before I start babbling too much. Lucinda can hear me. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Lucinda. How is everybody? I am basically popping on live because it's truthfully just easier to do this and not have to try to edit it. Like we're just gonna do it on the cuff. And let's see, I think we can set this over. We don't need this. I'm gonna put this over here. Hello, hello. Um, hello, Miss Mendy. Um, I like to do at the end of the year where I go back over all of the decks that I have done reviews for and just kind of see whether, how did they end up working out for me past the walkthrough or past the review? Like, is it something that I ended up using? Is it something that I ended up massively loving? Like, what did I end up thinking about that? And then if you guys, I feel like I have pulled about everything that I've done. I did a lot more live walkthroughs, so I did try to go through the lives as well as the regular ones to make sure that I kind of hit on all of I think I have all the decks pulled is what I'm saying. But if at the end of this, there is still like one that you have a question about that I've done a walkthrough over that I use and you have a question about it, feel free. Don't bother putting it in right now because by the time that comes, I will not be able to find that out again. Let me see something actually. Let me grab I don't think Mr. Okay, I'm going to mute this in case it starts playing. So give me 1 second here. Let me go. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to go to my channel. There we go. Let me click in here real quick. And then let me grab Miss Jamie. I know we're at a weird, time. Okay. Sorry, Miss Jamie. Hello, Messy Journal. Hello, everybody coming in. Again, if you're just coming in, I am going to go. I have a pile of decks here. I do have them separated off Tarot and Oracle. I'm going to start with Tarot just because it's closest physically to me. And these are not... my friend is saying that she loves the tree. Thank you. This is, I just grabbed something. I was getting too much reflection off of my desk, so I needed something to blanket off. This is actually a piece of fabric meant to be to turn into a pillow. And I'm intending to cut it down as a casting cloth, and I just haven't cut it down yet and seamed the edges, but it was what I had available to grab to stop the reflection. So I'm glad she enjoys it. But anyways, I am going to these are not in any order. Oh my goodness. That's a problem. Can you still see my there we go. Can you still see that? Hopefully you can still. That's a problem with using your phone. I could not find in class Saturday, I need this dongle to do the setup that I did with that last walkthrough where I could use my desk and my camcorder, but I had lost this and I just found it and I already had all the decks over here and I didn't want to move everything over. And so we're just kind of winging it, which means I have to use my phone for this part. Hello. And that may cause problems with the phone calls ringing. You know, let me turn the volume, the sound off here. There we go. So anyways, we just roll with technical difficulties as they come, and we'll get through. But I am going to get started because we do have a lot of decks. So again, our goal here is we're going through all of the decks from 2020 that I have done walkthroughs of, so that we can just kind of touch bases with them and what I think about them after having worked with them. Some of them, obviously, that I just did walkthroughs of, I have less experience with, but that way we can, people seem to like that recap, because I love doing first impressions and walkthroughs where it's just, okay, this is my reaction to a deck. I really enjoy that. But there is something different that also comes into being after you've used a deck, right? That is a different experience. So this way we get a little bit of the best of both worlds. I get to enjoy doing quick walkthroughs and first impressions. And then at the end of the year, I just kind of recap them all. So, okay. I'm just going to get started. Again, this is in no apparent order, even though it's going to seem like it, because, and I don't know if I'm going to open every box, because let's be honest, that would take us forever. This was my most anticipated, I wonder if you got to like the cards you didn't like. Yeah, it depends. Like, if you remember one, when I pull up a deck, Tater Tots, let me know. Usually it's the case. I will say, Tater Tots, that usually if there's a deck, a card that stands out in the walkthrough that I didn't like, it ends up stalking me until we become friends. That's generally what happens. This was probably my most anticipated deck for 2020, which is the Oak, Ash, and Thorn Tarot. And if you've watched the walkthrough of it, you would know that I was very enthusiastic about this deck in terms of the first impression. And I have absolutely loved this deck. I have used it a whole bunch. I have used it with clients. I have used it with myself. I have absolutely loved this deck. And yeah, it definitely did not disappoint. Everything that I loved about it in the walkthrough, I just love about it even more after having used it. And I have done a lot of readings with it. So very much happy with this. This is definitely actually not just liked the deck, but it's definitely in my favorite cubicle part of the deck. So that's that. So another newer one, but fast loved one, has been the Witch's Wisdom. I don't have the box out here because it's not been put back in its box. This is the Witch's Wisdom Tarot. And this one is another one that did not disappoint. I have used this with clients and I have used this for myself, and I really love this. There's really nothing that I don't love about this other than the cardstock. The cardstock, in order for me to riffle shuffle, again, this won't matter if you're not a riffle shuffler, I have to split the deck in half and then like riffle shuffle half of it, and then riffle shuffle the other half, and then put it together, and then overhand shuffle it. It's not very flexible. It's kind of got that bent, you know how they kind of like, I don't think you're going to be able to see. It's very slight, like warpedness, and so it doesn't respond very well to riffle shuffling. I love this deck so much that I really wish that it was on, a little more flexible cardstock, like a plain cardstock, because I love this so much. Now, I will say, as a professional reader, that I'm sparing in who I use it with, especially for big spreads, because the majors have been renamed a lot and they're going in backwards order, which I love, but you do then have to say a lot of, well, this is in a traditional deck, this would be this card, right? So I really only use it with clients for people that I know are, this would be a great deck for them, and I know that they have no issue with that. It's been great for Wheel of the Year readings, and again, I don't know why I'm showing you the backs. I've enjoyed great for myself as well. Like this is so in alignment with the way that I read tarot that it's just really it's really just comfortable to be able to read with it in a way that I absolutely love. So everything that I felt about it in the walkthrough, I have continued to feel even after you know, using it for a while. Okay. Oh, you'll have to, if you watch I have walkthroughs of all of these. So if you're just coming in, all of these are decks in which I have thoroughly walked through them. And I'm just recapping at the end of the year, all of those decks and kind of touching bases with what, how I feel about them after having used them. So I'm definitely not going to be able to like go back through all of the things about each of the decks. So if one of them interests you, I have a full walkthrough of them, but the majors walk not from the Fool to the World, but from the World, well, the Pilgrim, which is a Fool, backwards. So that's kind of the way that it does that. This is the Brady Tarot, and I will say I haven't used this too much since I did a walkthrough. If you watched the walkthrough, you'll know that you know, I have there are reasons why I knew that I would have issues with this deck. I think it's absolutely stunning. I'm not a huge fan of the titles, the keywords on the minor cards, because it does kind of it boxes you in a little bit to their meaning. And because I don't read traditionally the Rider-Waite-Smith system, right? So the Rider-Waite-Smith is it's a form of tarot, just like Thoth is a form of tarot and Marseille is a form of tarot, and, you know, so on and so forth. Since that's not my primary reading mode, the sword suit is often quite different than how I would read them numerologically. And so I knew that the sword suit and the keywords at the bottom were going to be, you know, not always in alignment. I will say that I enjoyed the walkthrough of it more than I thought. And I have used it a couple of times with myself just to kind of get you know, just work with it. But it's not a deck that I would grab in using with clients because it is very different than the way that I interpret some of the cards. And so, you know, it just has had limited time. It's not something that I would get rid of because I do think it's beautiful. And if you know me, you know, I do have a collection and I'm happy to have a collection. But it's not something that would be a favorite or something that I would be pulling out, even though I appreciate it. And I think that for the people that the keywords are in alignment with it, they read the way that they read the cards, that it's an amazing deck and it's you know, artistically gorgeous. This is just a this is just a factor of this isn't in my lane of how I read tarot. So it's too boxed in for me to work with it, especially with clients. So that's the Brady Tarot. This is similar. This I didn't even remember that I had done this walkthrough this year, and I believe there's a whole other edition out. Somebody might know. This is the 5-cent tarot, and I keep getting my phone is interrupting. I hope it's not interrupting the view of this. I may have to pause for a minute and try to maybe put my phone in airplane mode. I think there's a new edition of this out. This is one of those things that, again, like visually, artistically, quality, it's absolutely stunning. Like it really is stunning. I'm just, for myself, for the most part, and there are a couple exceptions, I find that I'm actually not that great. Or I'm not a huge fan of keywords on cards. And again, especially because these keywords are very Rider-Waite-Smith oriented. So because of that, sometimes, you know, these just aren't in the way that I might particularly read them. I remember there were a few strange ones that I was I think with the 8 of Cups was a strange one that I was kind of like, what? Like, I didn't really understand that. It's just, you know, it's gorgeous. The quality is gorgeous. edges are gorgeous. Like, it's really, really well done. And if these are, again, if the keywords are in alignment with the way you read, then that's fantastic and it works. But it's just not a deck that I've reached for. It's not a deck that I really used at all. So that was definitely I feel like a little bit of a wasted money for myself. Again, not because it's not quality. The quality is amazing. And I know a lot of people love this. And so it's just, do you like keywords? Are the keywords that you would be working with, traditionally for yourself? And if so, then this is a winner. If not, then it's just one of those things that I just don't reach for, but it's gorgeous. That's that one. Okay. Then we have the Hush Tarot. Again, these are not in the order that I did the walkthroughs. I'm just grabbing out of the pile. So some of these may be from the beginning of the year, and then some of these might have been from 2 weeks ago. I love this deck. I do not use this deck for clients. I don't think that I would. I've never been tempted to. It's very Fae energy for me. Really, everything that I said in the walkthrough, I still feel the same way. It's in my favorites cubicle. It's one that I use for myself. It is really, you have to be willing to stretch your ideas of what the cards mean. But it definitely takes you to amazing places, and it does a really good job of capturing that understanding that things go from growth to death, and then to that decaying, and that the whole cycle of life, not just the one cycle of growth and abundance, but also that we have the falling off, and we have the leaves and the things decaying and going back into the ground, and the cycle coming back up again. It just is beautiful for that, and I love it. It's definitely in my favorites. But again, it's a personal deck. Like this, I don't foresee myself using this. Now, if a client requested it, or it was somebody that I just knew would work well with this deck, I would use it, but I've only used it for myself. But I do absolutely love it. Hello, Miss Nikki, and hello, Miss Hanaconda. Walking through all of the walkthrough decks from this year. So this is up in my favorites cubicle. Okay. Next one, I think have done 2 walkthroughs of the Lost Forest this year. I think this was maybe my first deck of the walkthrough of the year. I can't remember, but I love this deck. I will say that the second edition has gray text, and I talk about this in the walkthrough. I think I did a comparison. I prefer the white text of the first edition. It's just easier to see it, but I do love the reworking of some of the cards. There's quite a lot of cards reworked, and so. But regardless, whether it's the first edition or the second edition, this has probably been one of my most used decks this year for clients. I love the colors. I love that and the light Sears Tarot, but that was not one that I did a walkthrough of this year. But I've used this a lot. It goes well with my Lenormand deck, so I use it a lot with clients. I really like the connection of the panoramic of the minors. I really like how it gives you enough in the images to tell the story, but it's not so much that it locks you into one way of thinking or seeing or reading the cards. So it almost feels like working with a beautiful pip deck without it being a pip deck, if that makes sense. So I have read with this a ton. Again, the first edition, or this is the second edition. And I like the changes in the second edition, but I like the even more openness of the first edition. And I definitely like the white text of the first edition by far. And that could be something, that could be more my eyesight that needs that bigger contrast. Then somebody else may have no issues with that. But it is something that every time I use it, I'm kind of like, oh, I wish the white text was still on there. But I've used this deck so much, and it is definitely a fast favorite. That's going back on my reading table over there. So that's that. Oh, you see the same thing with conscious. Yeah. And I don't know, like, it's so hard for me to judge those things because I do know that my eyesight's not great. So I don't want, I don't expect anybody to cater to my eyesight, but I do feel like that white contrast pops a little bit more. The Cosmovisions, this would definitely score the Lost Forest. The Cosmovisions would definitely be an MVP. I have some other ones in Oracle decks that would be MVPs of decks that I've done walkthroughs of this year. But this is probably one of my absolute favorite decks that I've reviewed this year. This is not out yet. This is a prototype of the deck. I did a walkthrough on this, and I think I did maybe one or two follow-up videos about this deck, so I'm not going to belabor the point. But as somebody who does a lot of past life reading, so that is something that, as a professional reader, I do a lot of past life readings. I will say this year, people have definitely been interested in past life readings. So this is like in my niche, but I think, as I said in a follow-up video, this deck for me is amazing for past life readings, hands down, no question. But it is also amazing for just transitional times. If somebody is in a period of transition, and some of these are upside down because this is an oracle deck that uses reversals. And I will say, if you're like me and you don't traditionally use reversals in tarot, and you've already purchased this deck or you purchased a Kickstarter, try using it with the reversals, because it's beautiful without the reversals, but with the reversals, it expands the deck in an extremely powerful way. And I think that I know that the intention was to use reversals with it. And I think it's necessary to get the full force of the deck, of the system. And the other thing that I would say is that when you get yours, don't get too tied in by the tarot. There is a connection, there is a thread to tarot for sure. The way that it is organized and set up, it has the major arcana, it has 5 suits, 4 elements, and 1 of personalities. But if you try to stay too tight to tarot connection, I really think you kind of miss it. You miss sort of what it does by itself. So that's what I would say about this. But anyways, this is an amazing deck. I've used it a ton. This one does have some errors in some of the printing on it. I have paid for. So this is not because this deck was sent to me for review. I paid a lot of money for a couple, for the whole bunch of Kickstarter stuff. So this, I have put my money into this deck, and it is definitely one of my absolute favorites of 2020. And I know that I will be using this deck for a very, very, very long time. So I am thrilled with this one. And it has gotten mucho use. So yes. I know I am looking forward to it too, Miss Nikki, that box of goodies, but it was a pain in my wallet. Oh, but amazing, but well worth it. Okay, continuing. This was the Tarot of the Divine, a deck and guide. Oh, I'm reading the deck and guidebook. This is gorgeous. I really enjoy this deck. I don't use it a ton. But I didn't really expect that this, obviously, I mean, to be fair, I do read professionally, right? And so there is a bit of a difference in the decks that I will grab for professional readings versus decks that are, I just love myself. And obviously the decks that function really well in professional readings are going to get the most use, right? So because I'm doing most of my readings, the vast majority of my readings are for clients. So if a deck fits that criteria for me and works great with how I need it to work for clients, it's going to see far more use than a deck that I just love, but it's just for me. So I will say that I have enjoyed this, and I've enjoyed more pulling a card and getting the story out of it versus using it for full readings. This is not a deck that I would ever get rid of. I enjoy it. I love it. I enjoy working with it, but it's not something that I would use with clients, and I never really expected to. So I have mostly used it in conjunction, thank you, Miss Nikki, with the the book, because the book is amazing. And so I mostly like pull a card to get to the story in the book. And that's what I have. That's kind of how I've used this. So I haven't used it really as like a doing a full on reading, but I don't regret it at all. And it's not a deck that I would get rid of. Like I love myths and fairy tales and stories, and I think it's stunning. So I was stolen by my offspring. I think I don't have my mouse here, so did somebody have a question? I'm so sorry if I'm not looking too much at because I'm trying to. We have a lot of decks to get through, so I haven't looked super close unless it's popped out. So if somebody had a specific question, I apologize. Maybe like put my name. Maybe put my name in capitals or something like that so that maybe I'll see it. Can I shortly mention the software that I'm using right now? I am using a piece of software called OBS. The letters OBS. It's a free software that you can use to be able to manage doing different things. So, for example, if I wanted to just go to face only, I could click over to face only. Many of you were so kind and gracious to do a lot of this testing. I can do, oh no, now we lost my hand. Oh no, we lost it. Okay. Now we've got the hands only, but why is the face and the hands not working? Oh, we lost it. Okay. Let me try to refresh it. We have confused it. Oh, see what happens. Don't. This is not my fault. Okay, maybe. Oh, you know what? I think I did it through here. There we go. The other one's for class because I teach classes and I needed to do different things. I can do with playing Animal Crossing. I can do different things with it. So depending on what you're trying to hook up, I went through lots of videos trying to test different formats. I can do it to my camcorder with my reading desk, which is my favorite. No, it's not your fault, Miss Nikki. I'm just teasing you. I had just already piled the decks here because I truly prefer that. That last testing that I did on my reading table was my favorite, but I already had a pile of decks, so I thought we'll just do it this way. So once you get your OBS set up, and it did take me a while, like it took me some working through it, you can make it be a virtual camera, and so that when you go into StreamYard, it's using it instead of your webcam so that you can do the different things. So yeah, pause for tech, a tech pause. Okay, so Tarot of the Divine. I really love this deck, but again, it's not one that I've done like readings from. It has been a pull a card and read a story, more bibliomancy in a way. Thank you, Roseanne. Okay, next one, the Spacious Tarot. This is really beautiful. I will say that I use this deck a lot. I don't remember when my tarot class, so I teach Lenormand and tarot, and they're usually, I think the tarot class might have been at the beginning of last year. It's usually the first and second class I teach are tarot and Lenormand. And so I use this a lot in my tarot class. And I haven't done a ton with it, but I do really love this. The negatives that I had of it, I believe might have been fixed in a second edition. If somebody has a second edition, they can point it out. I believe that it's all slightly muted, and I feel like I heard that the second edition was a little bit brighter, which I do think that it needed the saturation, just not even saturation, just the brightness level needed to come up a little bit. But it is what it says it is. When it calls it a Spacious Tarot, it leaves you the space to read your cards, right? To read the way that you read. I need to actually put this out where I just reach for it more. One of the downsides of having a lot of decks, which I am happy to have, but one of the downsides is that if you don't pull one out where you're seeing it, then you can sometimes forget to use it. But what this is so beautifully does is to give you the space to read. It gives you enough context within the card to still not be a pip deck, which a lot of people don't like. I love pip decks, but most people, and certainly clients, do tend to respond a little bit more to some imagery. So it gives you the imagery that you need to kind of be beautiful and to tell a little bit of the essence of the card, but it's not so much that it restricts you. So it feels like a scenic pip deck. Much like with the Lost Forest. And that is invaluable for somebody like me who doesn't read straight Rider-Waite-Smith. That's really invaluable to me. And it's also a great size for bigger spreads. So I have used this. I'm going to put it out. Like, it's one of those things that, I used it for a while at the beginning of the year, but then I was using other decks. But I really enjoy this deck. I love the cardstock. And it looks like Miss Mendy said that they did brighten it up, which is the one thing that I think it definitely needed. It's probably not really showing up here, but it just needed to be brightened up a little bit. So I'm really happy with this deck. I think that it's really well done. I think this is great for beginners, and then I also think it's really great for people like myself who want the symbolism to be there but don't want to be banged over the head or blocked into a corner with the symbolism. Yes, Rosanna, so it's a very subtle, open, spacious, symbolic cards, and I think that we need more of these decks. We definitely need more. I think that we have less people who are, I won't say that. That is not correct. We probably have more people who are Rider-Waite-Smith readers. But I do think that there are more readers than there were that maybe aren't Rider-Waite-Smith or maybe aren't Thoth, but maybe are more like me, numerologically based. And I think that having decks that open that up a little bit is a great place. And I hope we see more of these types of open decks like this that are still beautiful. They still have symbolism there, but it's not so restrictive. So yes, I know that was a lot about that. I'm going to actually leave this out because I need to use that a little more. Okay. Let's see. Next one, Shimmering Veil Tarot. This also had a second edition. I don't have that one right here because this is actually the first one, and I actually like this one more. I'm not a huge fan always of like super shiny edging, like shining gilding. Like I like matte gilding on edges much more than I like and I actually really like this white edging with it. So the other one is stunning, like absolutely beautiful, but I bonded with this one and I just have kept using it. So I love this deck, Miss Jamie. Apparently Jamie did too. I love this deck. I really, this is by the creator of the Devas of Creation Oracle, which is an Oracle deck that I also really loved. So I'm not too surprised, but this is gorgeous. And this has been a deck that I use for like healing type spreads for clients and for myself. I use it for like grief readings. I've used it in Port in the Storm readings. But that type of reading where there is, I just, something about this. Other decks that I use in that category are the Moonchild Tarot. I use the Margaret Peterson Tarot, and I use this tarot, primarily those three decks, for decks that are related to grief work and healing work. And I just find it to be stunning. Like, I really love this deck. So I wouldn't say this is like I don't use it tons because it's not like I don't use it for just like a general tarot reading. You can. This is just me. I have a lot of decks, and so the decks tend to sort of slip into their categories. But I use this for grief readings and supportive reading. This is so stunning. Yeah, so I have really loved this. I've had a couple people request this for like Wheel of the Year or Year Ahead readings as well, which is awesome. So it has gotten some use in that way also. But yeah, this was a big winner for me. I really loved that. That goes in my favorites and my favorites that I use. Okay. I got to clean my cubicles after this. I've ripped everything out. few of the darker cards have been brightened, including the Wheel of Fortune. I think they're talking about the Spacious Tarot, the Hermit and the High Priestess. The line work on a couple cards have been subtly changed. Yeah, I have not looked into any of those changes. I just heard, everything that I heard about the changes was positive. So thank you, Miss Lillian. I appreciate that. Okay, two more tarot decks. This is the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. This is one of those decks that is like super cool. Like, I love the black backs, like the straight black back, matte black backs. Like, that to me is super cool. Like, I love it. And I love the color tones on this a lot. So but I will say that I just haven't used this deck a lot. I don't think it would be one that I would use with clients, because it's kind of doing its own thing in some ways. It's being, it's kind of pushing boundaries and shifting things in really cool ways, which I love. But those aren't the types of decks that I'm going to reach to for clients, right? This would be something that I love this Empress. This is something that I would use more for myself. It also has a very modern vibe, and to be honest, I don't tend to reach as much for modern decks. I'm more going to reach for nature-y based decks or classic-y type decks. Now, the exception is the Light Sears Tarot. Again, that wasn't a deck I did a walkthrough of this year. That was last year. But that is a deck I use with clients a lot. That people really respond well to the Light Sears. And that's the modern deck that I tend to go to if I'm going to. But I do enjoy this. Like, this is not a deck that I would get rid of. It's just, for me, a bit more of like a collector's piece, and just for myself when I'm in the mood for doing it. But I like it, but it's not a deck that I reach for to do lots of readings with. But also, again, understand that I have specific needs for the decks that I'm going to grab all the time. So I get a little bit less use out of the decks that I just think are cool, or they respond for myself, but I wouldn't use them for clients. Okay, last tarot deck. This is the Darkwood Tarot by Sasha Graham. I still need to get my hands on the Nightmare Before Christmas one. I haven't been able to do that, and I have to get that. That was my son's favorite. Again, in all fair, I love this deck. So what I love about this deck is I love the book. I love the story aspect. I love following this woman through this story. Like, we're following this character all the way through the major arcana and things like that. I really love the guidebook in this book. I love the illustrative artwork. I think it's stunning, but this isn't typically a deck, again, that I'm going to pull out for clients. So I love it. I wouldn't get rid of it. I don't really even use it for myself, because if I'm going to go for, my own introspective work, it tends to be more nature-based decks that I'm going to go to. But as a collector's piece that I enjoy having, I love it. Like, there's nothing that I don't like about it. I just don't use it. And I have to be honest, like, when this is, and I knew that when I bought it. I didn't buy this because I thought I was going to use this with clients. I bought it because I love the illustrative work of the artist. I love the theme of going into the dark wood. So I knew that when I was purchasing this deck. So yeah, and I love the guidebook on it. I really enjoy the writing in this guidebook. I really enjoyed reading through it and seeing sort of this journey. It was just really enjoyable. So I have zero regret. Yeah, it really is innovative, and I have zero regrets. And I, again, it was not one I would get rid of, but it's not one that I use for readings a lot, and that's fair. Okay, so I'm going to take I thought I had a Coke Zero right here, but it has gone missing. Oh, here it is. I'm going to take a drink really quick. If that annoys you, then yes, it does remind me of Into the Woods. I just love it. I apologize. Look away if you don't like people who drink on camera, but I'm so thirsty. Okay. We got through half of it. Okay, I'm going to do this real quick, this one first, just because, unfortunately, this is one of my newest ones, but it's falling all over the place, so I am going to just use this real quick. This is a new to me decks. It was a video that I did with all three of these decks by Rebecca Lefebvre. I still don't know how to pronounce the name correctly. And the illustrations by Phoebe Hunt. And there's a set of three, one of Fantastic Beings, one of Fauna, and one of Flora. Now, what I have ended up doing, because I have these little ones too, and I trimmed these. You can see I trimmed, they had white borders around them, but I trimmed them all up. I love this Fantastic Being. I love all of these, but let me just kind of say how I've been using them. I love this Fantastic Beings. I think it's really different for an Oracle deck. I like that there's just different energies about the cards that we don't see over and over again in Oracle decks. I really, if you watch my walkthrough, you can tell, like, I really, this one just really tickled me. And I just, not tickled me as it was funny, but it just piqued my curiosity. It piqued my inner child. It was different. Like, it was just kind of fresh. And I continue to feel that way about the Fantastic Beings. But I will say that what I did with these, I have a set of the small cards as well. And what I did was I took all of the animal cards, which is the Fauna deck, and then I took all of the animals, because there's regular animals in the Fantastic Beings. I took all of the animals out of the Fantastic Beings deck. And so then what I ended up with was like an 80-some deck card of animal cards in this little one. And I love this deck. I've used this a ton. Because it's a whole bunch of animal. Like, who doesn't love it? Like, it's a bunch of, I did put the hands in there for human animals, because we are part of the animal world. And I think I put the fairy in there for fae energy. But I love having this, and I love the card stock. These decks, the big ones and the little ones, same card stock, probably my ultimate favorite card stock of this year for sure. So I really enjoyed this. And even with this being 82 cards, like, and small, which can make it hard, I can still like riffle shuffle. Look at that. Like, that's, for me, is awesome. So this one I've been using a ton. I believe she had a sale going on for quite a while, but I don't know. I'm not sure. But definitely these were wins for me. But mostly I've used either the Fantastical Beings one, or I've used this combo deck with a big animal deck. That's kind of how I've been mostly using this deck. But again, this was one of my recent ones, so, you know, take it as you want to. I haven't had it all year long, but I have really enjoyed working with it. This next one definitely wins for probably the most favorite of all of my Oracle decks this year. Certainly probably the most, thank you, somebody's going to help me. Rebecca's last name is pronounced as if there is no B. Lefebvre, maybe? Lefebvre? Something like that. I feel bad. Miss Rebecca. We shall call her Miss Rebecca. This is the Spirit. It's never been in its box since I got it. So this is the Spirit Cards Oracle deck by John Arthur Mosley, and it's never been back. I think I got this in the spring. Jamie might know. I think, Jamie, didn't we get this around the same time? I think so. Anyways, it was after COVID started and lockdown started, I think. Lefebvre. Miss Lillian's going to get me on target. I trimmed this because I didn't like this. They had very bright gold edges, which were beautiful. And I also had a small, very thin black border. I'm so happy that I trimmed it. I absolutely love it trimmed, and it's earthy, and it just felt like it's an earthy deck. It doesn't need to be gold. I've used this deck over and over again. I use it at the end of tarot readings to pull a card. I use it in casting readings to cast on top of. I use it. I don't even know. use it all the time. It's really probably my most used Oracle deck of 2020. My understanding is that he's working on an expansion or a second deck that can be shuffled in with it that will hopefully have some more masculine energy, which does have some. And it doesn't feel, even though there are a lot of female forms, it does not feel very feminine. It feels very balanced to me, maybe because of all the animals as well. Look at the Spirit Guardian. But I just love this deck. I can't even tell you. I've used it so much. It sits in my desk. I pull it for everything. So yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite elephant cards. But again, you have to, always keep in mind, right? Always keep in mind that I have a particular personal practice, right? So my personal practice is very animal energy based. It's very ancestor energy based. It's very earth and nature based. And so the decks that I am always going to grab for may not be the decks that means that this is the deck that everybody has to have. But if you're similar to me, then maybe this would be the one. But all I know is this is definitely an Oracle MVP for me in 2020. But yeah, I mean, we always have to keep that in mind, that what works for me as the greatest deck ever may look very different for you based on your practice, based on your color preferences, based on your art style preferences. There's a lot of things that go into making a deck click for you versus clicking for somebody else. And so it's kind of hard. I know, believe me, I get a lot of messages. I know that the decks that I love, I am very enthusiastic about, and that enthusiasm can be infectious. But always keep into mind, you all know my style enough to know whether maybe that's probably not for me, but that's cool that she loves it. Sorry, I should have got a straw. It looks like I finally nailed it, Miss. I'll slaughter it the next time, probably. I'll try not to. Okay, this one is this one's a special one for me this year as well. So I'm going to get this wrong. I'm so sorry, Miss Jamie, to pick on you, but I just know that you have a couple of these. This is called Elizabeth. The website is called Elizabeth on Earth. I think it's Elizabeth on Earth. This is a deck that I talked about before. This isn't a normal style deck for me. I'm not overly into surreal style message or type artwork. I love to look at surreal style artwork, but it's not my favorite in terms of reading with it. You think it would, right? Because feels very intuitive and that kind of stuff, but it's not my, I know, I just know Jamie buys everything. Exactly, Mindy. Let's see. I'm going to scroll back. Did Jamie say if what it was called? I'm pretty sure it's Elizabeth on Earth. I'm 99% sure. But I've just had a lot of personal readings with this. I don't use this for clients. This is just a deck that I've used for myself. It's been more for personal grief work, I would say, is how I would classify having used this. I don't typically like decks that are made up of all bunch of women, beautiful female forms and surrealistic style. It's beautiful, but it's just not generally what I'm attracted to. Two of these, it's a combination of 3 decks. 2 of these were sent to me, not by the artist, but by somebody who had them and was passing them on. And then one of them I purchased, the third one I purchased from the creator and then mixed them all together. And I've just had so many, this mother card, and there's 3 of these mother that goes together, and this mother have just come up for me over and over and over again. So it has just been a lot of healing, personal healing and grief work with this combination of decks. And I love it. There's not a deck that I would ever get rid of. I don't use it for clients. It's just my own, even in grief work for clients, I don't use it. It's just kind of my personal deck of working with things, and yeah, I've really enjoyed this. So and enjoy is a kind of silly word for it because I really don't mean enjoy, but it's been evocative and it's been good work. It's been a lot of good work for me. Okay. Ah, all right, all right, all right. I believe this year I've done 2 of these decks in walkthroughs, and I didn't grab the books, but these are the illustrated book decks. So there's the first one was the illustrated Bestiary, which is this one. I think that was the first one I had. There's beautiful illustrated books that come, and then these are the cards that are in the back of the books. I don't have the box sets of any of these. So this is the illustrated Bestiary. This is the illustrated Herbiary. Maybe the Herbiary came first. I don't remember. This is illustrated Herbiary. And then the latest one this year was the illustrated Crystallary or something like that. I really love these. These have stayed on my table. I like the smaller size, even though once they're all available in box form, I probably will get the box ones, but right now not all of them are available as the boxed forms. And what I do with these is that my journey system that I use, so my tokens or my Oracle deck, 3 of the symbols, one of them is crystals, one of them is plants, and one of them are animals. So that if in the course of doing a casting or doing a reading with my Oracle deck or my tokens, if one of those comes up, I will pull a card from, the Christia, whichever one is appropriate. So I've just found it, really compact and helpful that way. And so this stays on my reading table, and when I need to quickly grab either a crystal or an animal or a plant, I grab, from that. So I don't mix them in together. I keep them separate because of the way that I use them. Although I have done them all mixed together, and it's great. It's just for the way that I use them, I need them to stay separate. So that just stays on my reading table, and I've gotten a lot of great use out of those. So that's that. Okay, I'm going to pull these over here some more. This was definitely one of my anticipated Oracle decks of 2020. This is the Faceted Garden Oracle, which is by the same creator of the Illuminated Earth Oracle, which is not in the box because that never goes into the box. It's never been in the box since I bought the Illuminated Earth Oracle. And it is it's probably my most, it's up there and running with my most used Oracle deck, for sure. I use this for web readings. I use this for ancestor readings. I use this for Port in the Storm readings because it goes with everything. Like, I use this a lot. And so when she was coming out with this new one, which is the Faceted Garden, I was super, super excited about this. And I have to say that I love this. Like, in theory, I really love this deck. And I have used this deck for client readings, and I've used this deck for readings for myself. But I think because I love the Illuminated Earth so much, I've used it for so many readings, and the color tones and the theme of the Illuminated Earth really go with the kinds of readings that I pull it for, that I still grab the Illuminated Earth before I grab the Faceted Garden. But I love this. Like, I would never get rid of it. I really enjoy using it when I do feel the pull to use it. It's gorgeous. It reads really well. It's definitely a little bit more like a garden. Like, it really does. The difference between the Illuminated Earth is the earth is all of the earth energy. It's just the natural raw energy of the earth. The illustrated, or sorry, the Faceted Garden has that feeling of garden. It's much more laid out. It's much more planned. It's much more confined, not in a negative way, but it is much more, we're shaping our gardens. You know, when we're making a garden, we're shaping them in the way we need to versus it's just natural energy roaming free. So, so it has a different feel to it. So I love it. I use it, but I don't use it too much because I'm so massively in love with the Illuminated Earth that I tend to grab for that one first. So whether that will change over time, I don't know. Again, I would not get rid of this deck because I do love it, but its sister deck, the Illuminated Earth, just kind of wins for me. It wins out. But it's still in my favorite Oracle decks. So that's for sure. Ah, okay. Are you hanging in there, folks? Are you hanging in there? Another one, Oracle deck that I did walkthrough of this year was the Pathfinder Oracle. I have to say this would be pretty brief because I haven't used this too much. And it's not because I don't like it, because I really like it. But this is just one of those ones that I really like it personally, and I have used it. It's very earthy. It goes with the type of color tones and feels that I like for my personal practice. But again, because primarily my work, my readings are for clients, and it's just not one that I use for clients. It hasn't gotten much use. This came in the middle of the summer, I think, and I was just on to specific other decks, and it just hasn't had its time yet. I have it still in my section to do more work with, but I've enjoyed it, and all of the readings that I've done for myself have been really nuanced, and I've just really enjoyed it, and the color palette really speaks to me, but it just hasn't gotten the time that other decks have gotten this year. So I don't have a whole lot to offer on that other than that I'm still enjoying it. It's just not one that I grab all the time. So hopefully that makes sense. That back there. The next one is the Enchanted Bruja Oracle. I love this deck. My understanding is there's a deck with more, the newest edition has more cards than this one. I enjoy this. This is very fortune teller style. I like some of the different cards and concepts that we have. I think that it reads really well if you like Lenormand, Kipper, Sibylla, fortune telling style decks is what I'll call them. It has a very bam, 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 tell you what it has to say. This is one that will certainly come out in October or next fall. But it's not one that I use all the time. Not saying that Halloween decks can only be used at Halloween, because that is not true. But it does have a very Halloween-y vibe to it, and I can see it coming back out in like September or October of next year. But I really enjoyed working with this, and I thought that the creator did a great job. And you don't always see that with these type decks. Sometimes people just throw a bunch of things together that are thematic, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it reads very well. And I actually found that this one read quite well, and that was like a nice surprise. There, that it was cute, and it was the theme was really well put together, but then it also read really well, so that I was quite pleased with that one. Okay. Let's see. This next one is the Goddess Spirit Oracle. If you've watched my videos enough, you've probably seen, I know, Miss Nikki, I will pat you on the back. You're just like, banging out those links. So let's all give a moment to thank Miss Nikki. Although, because she's giving you easy access to the links, I feel like Miss Nikki should share also the hashtag Kelly made me do it should be hashtag Kelly and Nikki made me do it, because she's making it easy to click on. That seems like that would be fair. If you've watched my past walkthroughs, I did a whole video on Goddess Oracle decks. I will say what I said then. I am not somebody who works specifically with goddess energy. I also work with God and goddess energy as archetypes mostly. I mean, it's complicated. It's more nuanced than that. But what I mean to say is that I think that people have a different experience with goddess decks if they're working with goddess decks, in terms of divinity, right? It makes the intent, there's an intensity about working with god or goddess decks if these are your divine, images of your divine, something that is divine to you, or that is a god or is a goddess that you work with. But that's not necessarily the case for me. And the other thing is that I really prefer decks that have both masculine and feminine and anything in between style decks more than I really prefer to work with like an all god deck or an all goddess deck. That's just not something that I, in my practice, am going to reach for, right? So this isn't a deck that I reach for a lot, but of all of my goddess decks, and I have quite a few when I was going through and trying to find one, and when I was doing that video, kind of pulling and comparing all of the goddess decks, my favorite ones are the Goddess Knowledge card with the artwork by Susan Seddon Bolay, because she's my spirit animal artist. But I also really love this is my second, would be my second favorite of the goddess decks. And it's kind of surprises me because it's definitely a very modern, kind of youthful feel to it, although there are things like older crone, a little bit crone energy like Caradwyn. I like that Kali feels like Kali compared to some energies that might have of Kali. I wish that she would draw me a personal Anya card, and that would make this perfect. But I really do love this deck, and I like that Hell has the decay and the beauty. So there's things that I like about this deck. I love the Shield Maiden. There's another card in here that shows up for me a lot that, again, it's very beautiful. I don't mind beautiful goddess decks. I don't think any cultures tend to look at their, I know I probably say it's AINE, is a personal family goddess or fairy queen. I think most cultures do look at their gods and goddesses as sort of the epitome of what they in that time in that culture see as beautiful. So I don't really have an issue with that. But it seems quite youthful for me, and just not something I would normally work. They're beautiful, like her artwork is gorgeous. But this deck, this is my favorite. Like, this is definitely, this year I have done a lot of work with this card, and I love it. So I've really enjoyed this deck. I don't use it a lot because I don't use goddess decks a lot. But when I do, it's always on point. And it's really one of my one of my favorite of the goddess decks, and I've tried a lot of them. So yeah, I know that was a lot of explanation, but I don't think it's fair. Like, if I'm not somebody who works a ton with goddess energy, right? So I don't think I'm exactly the best person to say like what would constitute being, a fantastic goddess deck, and you need to go out and buy it. So I think it's important to know where somebody's coming from as well. But I really enjoyed it. This was one I did a walkthrough of this year, and I pulled it out. She was, I think, specifically used to be, I always grew up knowing of her as a fairy queen, but you can sometimes find information on her and have her listed as a goddess. Oh no. Okay, this is another one that I walked through this year. I'm trying to find the name of it. Sorry. I have the full size, but then I also, after my walkthrough, I ordered, what's the name of this deck? It's like Roots and, oh no, maybe somebody will know. It doesn't say on here. Well, if you go to Catrials.com, Katryalls.com, This says River and Roots, but I don't think the name of this is Rivers and Roots. I think it's Roots and something. Roots and Wings. Thank you, everybody yelling it out. I should have looked up instead of like searching. This stays, the larger size one stays on my ancestor altar or under my ancestor altar. And this little one has stayed the whole time on my reading table. I really love this deck. I think, I know, I know, Mindy. I'm like, I should have looked up faster. I love the cardstock. I love shuffling it. I just like this deck. Yeah. I just really enjoy this deck a lot. I think it's gorgeous. It reads really well. It's, again, I mostly use it in an ancestral context. I don't know why. It's just kind of gravitated to my ancestral altar, and I use it mostly in that way. I think that this looks really good with the Witch's Wisdom deck. I think somebody else suggested that, and I do like using it with the Witch's Wisdom, but I really love it. And yeah, like I said, I keep one there and one on my table, and I really love the mini one a lot. It's probably, I probably like the mini one more than I like the larger one, even though the larger one's awesome, but I like the backing of the mini one the most. And, I use the mini one the most. If I were to purchase one today, like, you know, I had to pick one, I would get the mini one, but that's me. It's just nice size, and I enjoy it. Okay. So that's that. That goes back on my reading table. Okay. Okay. We're getting close there, folks. We're getting close. This is called the Tree Angel Oracle deck. I believe I did a walkthrough of this fairly early in the year. And I will say I haven't used it too much. So I never know entirely what that means, because sometimes it's just that I have so many other decks that I'm reviewing or working with, and ones catch my attention and becomes the center of what I use. And so I just don't get back to it. Or if the fact that it is, you know, I don't use it a lot means that it doesn't really resonate with me. But I have enjoyed the readings that I've done with it, but I found that I've used it more to cast with, and I love decks like that. So I will generally pull one of these, right, and put it in the center of my casting cloth and cast like runes or charms on top of it, or even oghams on top of it, but generally runes or charms. And I just found it to be a really good, for me, that's kind of how I've been using this, as that sort of overarching energy. I think one of the reasons that I don't use this as much as I might is because a lot of them, a good majority of these, are the trees that are associated with oghams. And so since if I'm going to read with oghams, I tend to just, you know, read with oghams. So I don't reach for this as much, like to do a reading with it, but I really love the energy of the images. It has a very, I don't think of this as angels, but as like dryads or tree spirits is how I approach these. And I've really enjoyed it. It's just mostly pulling one card as the overarching energy and then casting on top of it is how I tend to use it. But it's not something that I go to a lot. But again, it's not one that I would get rid of either. So, you know, take that as you may, so to speak. Okay. Next one, which I think was early in the year as well, is this Mists of Avalon Oracle by Rose and Sarah, and the artwork by Nadia Turner. Now, let me just say, I love this deck. Number one, I love this deck. Number two, I love the art in this deck. So the artist, for me, this is trimmed, so you'll have to go watch the video of the original. I don't think well, here, I don't know if you can see it. And they're very tiny. I think these are actually bigger. It's hard to see. There are keywords on each of the four sides of the Oracle deck normally. I didn't really agree with the keywords. So mostly because I have my own understanding and my own long, many years of working with Arthurian and Avalonian concepts. Now, some confusion I saw in the comments of this walkthrough was that, that this was Mists of Avalon, aka the book. And it's not. It's the Mists of Avalon talking about the Arthurian and Avalonian myths cycle, but it's not a direct deck from the book The Mists of Avalon. I love this. Is one of my favorite depictions of the Lady of the Lake because it's so different. But because I have my own understandings of these people and especially the female characters, this is a very female oriented. There's so many women that are beautiful and powerful and complicated and flawed, very humanly flawed in the story cycle. But I didn't really feel like the keywords or even sometimes the write-up in the book, for me personally, jived with the way that I see these really interesting characters in this mythic cycle. So for me, it was just better to cut those off and still be able to use this really gorgeous illustrative style artwork by the artist. So I love this deck this way for me. For other people, they would love it with having the keywords on there. It's just, this to me made it perfect, and I love this deck. So I don't use it for clients. This is just something for myself, but I do really love it. And I've used it for sort of ancestral work, kind of like even like doing out sort of family tree type ancestry work in a way that's been quite interesting, and I've really enjoyed it. So love it, but I have trimmed it down, and I do find some of the descriptions and some of the keywords on the cards for me were somewhat problematic. But if you watch my walkthrough, I think I talk about that there. I know I have been following her. She is working on, I think she's working on a new deck, Cleo. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's working on a new deck. You know what? I think I'm thinking about somebody else. No, I think I'm talking about the artist who did the goddess deck. She's, I think, working on another deck. Anyways, I'm confused. Okay. So sorry. I really do know, like, I was trained and taught that you shouldn't drink in front of people like that, but it's hard if you're going to talk for this long, right? Okay. This is a new one. So this is one of those ones, I just pulled everything that I've done walkthroughs of in 2020. So that means that I could be wrong. I probably just got you excited, Cleo, and I could be entirely wrong. I hope she does, because I would buy it. I really love her artwork. So yes, that's an excellent idea, Miss Nikki, and please remind me if I forget. And that would have to be in my, that'd have to be in the spirit cards. So I'll stick this and then maybe I'll remember. I'll put it right here. Maybe I'll remember to do so. If I forget, please tell me, remind me again. So I have not had this deck very long, but I wanted to do all the decks that I've done, but I love this deck. If you watched my walkthrough, this was like a pleasant surprise. I did not expect to love this deck as much as I did, but I really love it. There is an openness about it. Again, there is something just different about I don't love this card. And I haven't worked with this enough for this deer and I to make friends. But other than this deer card, who just creeps me out because I love Avatar, but this isn't fully Avatar. It's like deer Avatar. It's like deer goat Avatar. This is the only card that's like, I mean, I know we're going to make friends, but at the moment, not so much. I have used this to cast on. I think it's a great deck to cast on. But I just, so far, and this is one of the more recent decks that I've done a walkthrough of. So far, I've been very pleasantly surprised. It has a very earthy vibe to it. I love this hair card. I love the artwork in it. It's evocative, but it's not restrictive. I just really am pleasantly surprised. by this deck, and it's definitely one that I will be working more with. I just haven't had it long enough, so I just haven't done a lot of work. Miss Nikki said the eyes in the mushroom are creepier. I get that. I get that. The deer one to me is creepy, but definitely feels very liminal space, in a nature fae liminal space way. So definitely, I'm really happy with that deck so far, but it's very new. This was another one from earlier in the year, I believe. This is no, because this got held up by COVID. So this must have been maybe the end of summer. This is the Antiquities of Magic. I really love this deck. I will say that I haven't used it a ton, but I have used it. And what I love about it is that it's a fortune telling style deck, which I'm a big fan of. But I think that some of why I haven't used it as much as I would have is that when I'm going to reach for a fortune telling style deck, it tends to be Kipper or Lenormand, or my own decks or something like that. Like it just tends to be what I'll grab for, especially in client readings. And again, I know this is a mantra, but it's the truth. Like if your primary reading is professional reading, you do have a limited amount of time in which you're doing your own personal readings. Like you're only doing so many readings for yourself. So then it's really hard to get to and get a lot of use out of all of the decks that may be like personal favorites. But I have done readings with this and I do love it. I think it's really well rounded. It reads really well. It has, I think, enough information with the the title that it's called and the image, but it is that fortune telling style, like just run with it, right? Just kind of what do those three, if you lay three things out, what is the sentence there? So I'm really happy to use this more and more. I just haven't used it as much as I would have liked over the last year. So I'm really thrilled that these types of decks are coming out, because I do think that the industry is saturated with tarot and what I would call, affirmation style oracle decks, right? Where there are these big cards, a theme of some sort, and it's just a bunch of words that are great to pull a single card from and get sort of a card of the day or get some sort of an affirmation for yourself. But there's not as many oracle decks coming out that are like systems in and of themselves that you can do sort of full readings with. And so whenever that happens, I am always excited to see creators making these types of decks still, because I think it's important, because there's a place for affirmation decks, but if we're so saturated with just those kind of oracle decks, I think we don't get we don't get exposed to different kinds of reading systems. So okay, there's that. Almost there. We've got three more. This is the Ocean Oracle. This was a deck that I had gotten, I think, in the beginning of the year. And I was really looking for a ocean-based deck that wasn't just like ocean animals. Like there's really not a lot of good ocean decks out there that aren't just like ocean oracle. I just couldn't find anything. I love this deck. This has been one I've only used for myself, and I've only used it for sort of like supportive grief work, pulling three cards, and it stays kind of under my ancestor altar. Not because I use it for ancestor work, because I don't, but I'm usually sitting on the floor there when I kind of pull like supportive messages for myself. And I've really enjoyed this. I don't enjoy names on the back of decks, but that's a pet peeve. So yeah, I haven't used it a ton, but it has stepped up to the table for what I wanted it to do, which is that sort of healing support, give me a quick message of support and that I need. And it's definitely a non-regret for sure, but it's not something I use all of the time either. Yeah, I with the artwork because of their photographs, like it could have been the whole image, should have just been the beautiful photograph. But yeah, what it is what it is. I didn't create the deck, so I can't really judge other people's choices, but I would have definitely preferred to see the gorgeous yeah, well sometimes it's also that like this one, I don't think I would edge because there's so much white. Some of these I have thought about edging, but you are probably correct, Miss Nikki. But this is got the white text and then the white front, and so I don't think this is not one that I would edge because I actually like the white borders on this one. I have another deck that's one of my most used decks, which is the Crow Tarot, and I haven't edged that one yet because I haven't found the perfect color that I want. So sometimes you are right, and sometimes it's because I actually like the white border on them. Like I will never edge, well, never say never, but I will, I wouldn't edge that Oak Ash and Thorn. Like that's gorgeous white, and I would not edge that. So it just depends on the deck itself too. Um, this one is a story cards. This time I haven't. I've had this for a long time, but remember, this is the one I did a walkthrough of because I found it. Actually, I need to put this out. I have to contact. I've got the one for the drawing. I've got to go back and pull that up, so I'll have to do that this weekend. I've enjoyed this. I haven't used this a lot. This one I would edge because this is lots and lots of colors. I had stuck this away to do a walkthrough of it, and then it had just gotten buried and I didn't even know I had it. And so I pulled it out and did a live walkthrough of it and really enjoyed this deck. And I have done some readings with it, not a lot because it's not been super long since I did the walkthrough, but I love the textures of the artwork of this deck so much. I love the colors. I like some of the different word choices and that was used for it. I've really enjoyed this. This is called The Story Cards by Kathy Nichols. So I feel like, it's not like I did this walkthrough at the beginning of the year and I've used it for a year. I did a walkthrough in the fall, I think, and I haven't used it a ton, but I've enjoyed it. I like the textures. I like the colors. I like the different takes, and I don't know. I just really like what she's done here. I think it's a little bit different, and it's got some shadow in it. I love, and it's not really the art style that I would normally, be drawn to, but I mean, look at the textures here. Like, I really love this deck. It was one of those surprises. This was when I did the walkthrough, I really wasn't sure what to expect. And I really, it really speaks to me. It kind of gives me the similar feeling to the Elizabeth on Earth, but less. That one is super like deep. Elizabeth on Earth decks are very like that's going into the cave of my psyche in a ways. That's what Elizabeth on Earth feels like. Where this is a little bit more inner childy, but not. I mean, the shadow here as well. So I don't know. I really enjoy that. Somebody said that, Miss Nikki, but I forgot to go and look for that. So I haven't checked it out. But quite a few people, I think, in the comments were saying that they really enjoyed the other deck, but I haven't tried it. So that's that one. Two more, no, one more, folks. This is a quick, easy one. This was a Kickstarter that I backed called The Witch's Familiar Runic Oracle. I love this deck. Now, I will say that I don't use it a lot, and that is simply because I really do cast runes. Like, runes for me are meant to be cast, not cards. This year has been the year in which I have embraced some rune decks, and they have found their place. There is a place for them, but it's not something that I use a lot. If I am going to do runes, I am going to put my hand in a bag, pull out some runes, and throw it down. Like, that's just runes to me. but I do love this. I have kept it on my reading table. And if I'm just like doing a reading and I just feel like grabbing a rune for a client or something like that, I will grab one of these and throw it on the table. It's called it's hard to see it. But it's called the Witch's Familiar Runic Oracle. It was a Kickstarter. I think it's still available outside the Kickstarter, but I don't remember. I didn't know it was going to be so small, and I love the smallness of it. I think she did a really great job. It's an animal. It's associating an animal with each one, and I think she did a great job of the animals with the runes. So yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's never going to be, I'm never going to primarily do a rune reading with cards. But it stays on my reading table since I got it. And if I just feel like grabbing a runic energy, then I grab it and kind of put it on the table, and it's just beautiful and compact. So I've enjoyed it as much as I'm going to work with the rune deck. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Folks, that was, I think I'm missing one. The only deck that I think I'm missing the Shadow. Is it the Shadowlands Tarot? I did a live walkthrough of it. Called the Shadowlands. It had like cute little creepy creatures in it. I haven't used it, but I kind of knew it. I really like it. I enjoyed the walkthrough of it. I enjoyed seeing sort of what was going on with it. I know a ton of people love it. I think it's just not my art style. Like it's not something that I'm going to pull for clients. It's not really something that I'm going to pull for myself. So it's really one of those ones that I kind of knew it. Sometimes when you buy something that, I'm kind of interested because everybody's like, oh, this is so fantastic. And it really was. Like, I was impressed with it. I was glad to be able to take a look at it because I enjoyed walking through it. I enjoyed taking a look at it, but it's just not a deck that I have used since the walkthrough, even though I think it's great. And that has nothing to do with the deck itself. It's just not my particular cup of tea that I'm going to reach for. But tons of people are just, they just really love that deck, and I can see why, but it's just not my, it's not something I've ever reached for since I did the walkthrough of it. So I think that's the only deck that I've done a walkthrough of in 2020 that I forgot to get out of my closet. I think it's in my closet in my bedroom. So, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and, before I forget, and do a reading, pull 3 cards for us while we're talking. If you have a question about a deck that you know that I have and just want to know what I think about it, and you know that I have it, you're welcome to throw that out there as we kind of wrap things up. I do want to keep this sort of related to decks and things, just so as people watch this back, that it stays sort of concise. I don't want it to kind of veer off into other things, so that people can watch this back and concisely see all of the decks that I walked through in 2020. Cleo says she's ready in 2 Kickstarters. Yeah, I don't think there's any other decks that I'll get this year. I mean, I have decks that are in the pile to do walkthroughs of, but I don't think there's any other Kickstarters that will come through. I do have the Cosmovisions will be coming in, I think, February. I don't think I have too many Kickstarter decks. Like, I don't think I backed a lot this year. A lot of my Kickstarters came in this year from the year before, but I don't think I have a lot of Kickstarters that I'm waiting for. The Cosmovisions is the main one. It might be the only one that I'm waiting for next year, but I don't know. I'm not going to, don't hold my feet to the fire, because that could be wrong. But I don't have any that I know are coming, or that I'm waiting for that will come in the last 2 weeks of December. So let's see. We have not officially yet, right? We are 2 weeks into December, but we're kind of wrapping up 2020, folks. Here we have made it. Some there's been highs and there's been lows. There's been, a lot more lows and a lot more struggles, I think, for everybody for a variety of different reasons and at different times. Like it is Jamie. Jamie. Jamie has 14 Kickstarters coming. My phone is right here, so I can't look to see for sure. No shade for me, Miss Jamie. Cosmovisions for sure. I think that's the only thing I have. I'll have to take a look. I don't. The Gentle Tarot. I don't have. So if it's not okay, here's the thing. If the deck hasn't come out yet and I haven't seen a full walkthrough of it, for the most part, I don't purchase it. That's why I don't tend to back a lot of Kickstarters unless all the artwork is done. It's just a thing for me. I do like to see all the cards unless it's like an artist that I just know. If James Eads does a deck, I'm going to buy the deck because I have all of his decks and I just love everything that he does, right? But there's not a lot of people like, and just somebody else, like if somebody came out with a deck and I just really love what they did before, bam, I probably Kickstart order it without the artwork. But for the most part, I prefer to see all of the cards before purchasing a deck. And so that does mean that I tend to not do as many Kickstarters as some people do. And that sometimes has meant that I've missed out on decks that they have come out. And then I've been like, oh yeah, I really actually did like that deck when it was all done, and then they were sold out. That has happened to me. But what can I say? It's just one of those things that I like to see all the cards if I can. It's not so much sensible, I guess. I don't really think I'm sensible when it comes to decks. But if I'm gonna buy one, I just want to know that I'm gonna really like it. And I feel like sometimes with Kickstarters, what they do is you see the major arcana usually first, because I feel like that's kind of how they start their Kickstarter out. And they can be absolutely gorgeous, but then that's like, there's still 56 other cards. And sometimes the minors can be done differently. There's specific minor cards that I like to look for. So it's just, it's just one of those things. Maria, yes, I do have a walkthrough of the Hush Tarot. In terms of whether or not I use it, yes, I do use it, but I only use it for myself. It's not a deck that I would use for clients. It's in my favorites cubicle. I really love it. There are very few decks that reflect my idea of what Fae energy is. And the Hush Tarot, while it is not billed as a Fae deck, it really does speak to my idea of Fae energy. And so I do really love the Hush Tarot, but it's not something I use for clients. So I wouldn't say I use it a lot, but it is in my favorites, and it is not a deck that I would get rid of. Let's see. How have you gotten along with the Munch? Oh, and I'm going to say that wrong. Is it Munch? Munch? I had it. I have not. This is a funny thing, Miss Gina. I really enjoyed the walkthrough. That was very different. I used the deck, the Tarot of Art History for Past Lives Readings deck. I use that one a lot. I use that in all of my past life readings for the most part. But I don't actually do a lot of relationship readings. It's not something that people typically come to me for. Not that relationships aren't part of the readings. Like people do a lot, I get relationships are a lot of relationship readings that I do are incorporated into like grand tableaus. I would say at least probably 50% of my readings are Lenormand based. And so a lot of relationship readings for me tend to be Lenormand readings that people have purchased. Tarot readings, while sometimes they are based around relationships, not as much for me. So I don't have as much use or call for a deck that is specific to relationships. So I have it, and I've done a couple readings for friends with it, but it's not one that I've gotten enough use out of yet to make that call. So that should have actually been in here, shouldn't have. That would have been a walkthrough from this year. I missed that one. I know there's got to be more than one that I've missed. I tried to go through all of them and try to pick them out, but so yeah, so I literally I just don't do a lot of just straight up purely relationship readings in order to get enough, be able to say what I feel about it in long-term use. So maybe next year I'll be able to readdress that one. Mendy says, I just got the art. Oh, let me scroll back up. The art history of past life. I'm excited to use it. Yeah, I use it a lot. Essence is talking about uncover your past lives over. I haven't seen that. I'm not sure. I think she's talking to somebody else. Like, don't butt into our conversation. Okay, so I'm not correct. If I've missed like a specific question, please. Oh, here, I think Wee Moon says Prisma Visions Tarot and Light Visions Tarot, James R. Reed. REs. I was going to ask my feelings. I love them. I use primarily the Prisma Visions when I'm doing client readings. I feel like people really relate to colors and really react well to the colors of the Prisma Visions. The Light Visions I personally love. And so I use the Light Visions a lot for myself. And when I do decks that I like to have in tandem, I like to use the Prisma Visions and the Light Visions together. I love everything that James Eads does. I am a fangirl of James Eads, so you can take that with some bias, but I have also used them a lot. So I am very much, I'm a big fan. So I'm a big fan. I use them. It's not just I love them. I actually use them. I would say, I don't know how you're using the deck, Tarot Your Truth. I really use it very specifically. I don't use it as a tarot deck. If I used it outside of past life readings, I would use it as an oracle deck with the keywords in the top. But I use it very specifically for like the when and the where in past life readings. And so it's not a deck that I would recommend as just like a straight up tarot deck, even though obviously you can use it that way, but that isn't the way that I use it. Mendy, it looks like you're like holding your hand up and like go Venus, huh? Mendy's putting up random emojis. I need to try. I know how am I gonna, I can't even, I'm gonna have to check that uncover your past life. I'm so sorry I'm hitting that. I would close this except I want to pull some cards first. Again, if I've missed something that, specifically about a deck, please don't feel bad or rude to repeat yourself if I've missed it. So please feel free to do so. The ghost in the room definitely put those cards on the map for me and in the cart and checked out. It's great for that. I use other decks I use is for the ghost cards. She's talking about the ghost cards one that I did a video on. There's a live video on that you can watch. I also like to use Darkness of Light Tarot with the Fountain Tarot. That's really great for that. Would I ever consider doing a follow-up video on the art history of past life deck demonstrating how to use it? Yes, I would. Let me make a note of it. Finding a pen that writes. Here we go. Follow up. Actually, somebody else has asked me, art history. Somebody else has requested a video about how I do past life readings, and so I could kind of combine those together. Okay, let me pull these cards out, and then I'll switch from the hands down view here. But if you have any question about a deck like that I have, and you have a question about what I feel about it, feel free to stick that in there. Angela asked if I have the Bonestone Earth Flesh. I do. I got that from Miss Anna, the artist. I actually did a walkthrough of it, and I have the sticky on the scan the disc, the little disc thingy that goes in my camcorder, but I haven't pulled it in and I haven't edited it yet. I do have it. I don't have any, like, I didn't follow it through all of the long production or anything like that. So I really just reviewed it as the deck as it is. I am a huge fan of Anna's deck or artwork. No, it's not. I don't have it up. It's not even edited. I have it on a stick. I've got to pull it in and edit it. But I do really love it. There are some, there are some things that I have some issues with on it, but I do have it. I haven't used it a lot, and I've just done a walkthrough on it, so I don't really have. I haven't have the usage of it yet, so maybe next year. Not much, Miss Angela. I tend to not, I have a pile of decks to do walkthroughs of, and what I found is that I just don't tend to do work with decks until I've sat down and done those walkthroughs. And so it's, until I do the walkthrough, it's like it's not really been opened up for me to start working. There are exceptions where I tear right into a deck and I'm not waiting to do a walkthrough, but a lot of times they get sort of relegated to wait until I've done that thorough walkthrough. It's not just for you guys to use, but it's also what sort of gets me into and connecting with the deck itself also. I will do walkthroughs of decks that maybe I wouldn't put up for whatever reason, just for myself, because that's kind of how I process a deck now. Oh, hello, Miss L. Okay, let's see. I don't know if I missed any. If I missed something else, I'm not gonna scroll back too far. I'll get lost. Let me pull these 3 cards. I know I've said that like 12 times. So let's just pull end of 2020. Let's go. Let's get through the last 2 weeks of 2020. Kind of a message. What do we need to hear to support us as we get through the holidays, as we get through the last of 2020, see what it is that we need to see. Our first card is the Divine Union. Our second card is the Owl Spirit, and our last card is Fire. Al said, did I do? No, because I haven't done a walkthrough of that yet, Miss Al. If you're coming in late, this was a walkthrough of or a recap of all of the decks that I've done, most of the decks. I think we found a couple I forgot, but most of the decks that I did walkthroughs of in 2020, just to see how did I end up using them, what did I think of them after using them, that kind of thing. I usually do this at the end of the year, or sometimes the beginning of January, but we're wrapping 2020 up. Oops, here we go. So we have, I love the Divine Union. For me, the Divine Union card is, I love the keyword of alchemy here. It is that idea of coming together of energies, that we are stronger when both our active and our receptive energies are pulled together, right? It's very much that temperancy feel kind of vibe for me, that yes, feminine, receptive, yin, however you want to look at that energy, is powerful in its own right. Yes, masculine, forward motion, active, yang energy. Again, those are very traditional terms, but that type of energy is powerful in its own right. We all have those things within us. It's not about gender. We all have mixtures of those energies within us. And it is in that alchemy of those energies together that we have our greatest strengths, that we find our greatest strength. So that coming into moving through the rest of 2020 with our full self engaged is going to be important. Like, we don't want to just fall back into just passivity or receptive energy. We don't also just want to plow through the rest of 2020. Let's come together with our wholeness of self as we enter into this room or enter into the last 2 weeks. And I love that the owl spirit is here. You know, for me, owl spirit energy or owl energy is very focused. It's very predatorial. Owls, yes, are wisdom and all those great things, but owls are very much predators, right? They are able to see in the dark. Like we have all been a lot in the dark in 2020. It's been a difficult year for many people. The holidays are difficult, and we don't want to just sort of give in and let's just get through. Like, let's bring our full energy into bear. Let's hone our senses and be aware of our surroundings and active and go out active. Like, this is fire energy at the end, right? Passion. This is being all in. This is like, you know, we're going to see this ship to the end, right? To the port. Energy is so interesting, right? Because it's not, okay, you know, come here, come on, guys, come in for a hug, like come in for a hug, everybody. That's not the message here, right? The message is, you know, gird yourself up with the full essence of who you are. Don't come at it fragmented, right? Hone in, predatorial, use your surrounding, use your senses as you navigate the rest of the year, and lean into your passions, lean into the past. Just because a year is difficult, and this is a more than a difficult year, but that doesn't mean that it has to color everything, right? That we can still really lean into our passions, lean into our joys, go out with a bonfire, not a literal bonfire like of your space or anything, but you know, light that bonfire on December 21st and have that energy as we wrap up the year. So I really like this because it doesn't have that sort of, yep, I know this has been rough, like here, come here, let me give you a hug, which we need sometimes, but the cards here are really not giving us that. They're like, come on, pull it up, and you know, let's run through the rest of this year. Okay, so let me shift over here. Whoops. Okay, so there we go. Think that's for Miss Nikki, or no, it was for all of us, but it's Miss Nikki's suggestion. And that, I mean, I'm gonna scroll. Hello, Mr. Elron. Let me scroll back up and see if I missed anything. Again, I'm going to try to hone this in and wrap this one up because I want this to stay on target for my, you know, recap of 2020 decks. But I'm going to scroll back here real quick and make sure I didn't miss any other deck questions. Hello, Mr. Jonathan. Whispers Healing with My Ancestors. I love your name. Have you seen the new Fairy Lights tarot deck? No. Is it the Fairy Lights similar to the old one where it was like a part of, it was one piece of art that was cut in half and then it was like two cards made one image, if that makes sense? All cards had a match. Is it similar to that? I gave that, or I traded that deck away. Like some of that was just way out of the way that I read each cards, but it was beautiful. Or maybe it's a different one entirely. I guess I'm not going to scroll any further. If I missed a deck that you have a question about, throw it in there. Because no, I have not. Whispers Healing asks if I have purchased the Nightmare for Christmas tarot deck. I have not, but I definitely will. It was one of my son's favorite movies. I have to watch it every Christmas, and so I have to have the deck. It's not one that it's kind of like the Darkwood one. I know that I'm going to love it in terms of as a collectible piece. And again, because my son would roll over in his urn, he's not in the grave, but he would roll over if I did not get that tarot deck. So it's one that I will get for nostalgia and for collecting it. But I don't really see it being one that I would like make a lot of use out of, but I am most definitely going to be getting it. Hello, Miss Jada. I missed you. I missed you coming in here. Let's see. Did I miss any other decks? Let me see. I don't think so. I think that I'm good. Hello, hello, Havana. Okay, I think I've hit on all of the decks. So, I'm actually going to, I mean, unless I have, my phone has been blowing up, but I want to, so in case, unless there's like something going on, I don't think so. I have a book review that I want to do real quick. And so I think I'm going to just go ahead and do that live because I'm obsessed with this right now. So I think what I'm going to do is wrap this up. And so this is closed off because this is like 2020 review decks and I want to keep it that way. And I'll probably start another live just to chit chat. And I just want to show you this book that I'm absolutely obsessed with that I think you guys will all appreciate because it's kind of oracle-y in its own self. And I'm just so in love with it. So I do want to show it. So I think I'm going to do that. And so I'm going to close this chat down, run to the bathroom, grab a cup of tea, and start. And it won't be super long because I do need to go be a vegetable. It's been a day. But I will be back in just a little bit. But thank you all for watching. Thank you all for watching these walkthroughs that we've just talked about all through the year. And I'm sure we have many amazing decks to look forward to in 2021. So I will be back, and you all have a wonderful rest of your day whenever you might be watching this.